Hey, how's it going? You know what? I just finished a video and I just remembered there was like some other stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I'm I'm glad that I talked about Alexander Navalny, rest in peace. But I also wanted to talk about, well, it kind of covers a lot of things, but so I was watching, I like to watch shows and immerse myself in other stuff. So I started watching Fargo, and I had seen the season with Chris Rock, and then I wanted to go back and see more. So I have Hulu right now, and I thought, okay, that's where Hulu, or Disney, so that's where Hulu is, and I think Hulu has FX. And I Googled it. I'm like, okay, so I watched season 5. That's what was on Hulu. I was getting ahead of myself. Forget what I was saying about. Just listen to this part. So, season 5 is John Hamm, right? He's one of the co-stars. And he plays a character named Roy Tillman. And he's a sheriff. And if you've seen the Last Week Tonight with John Oliver episode where he talks about sheriffs and the kind of powers that they hold and how they're different from police. If you didn't see that and you have Hulu, watch season 5 of Fargo, because that sheriff is the epitome and beyond what Oliver talks about as far as what sheriffs can do and what they think they can do and what is morally and ethically right that they can do. And they think that because they're not judges, though, okay? They're not litigators. They're police, okay? They're constables. But a lot of sheriffs have twisted their job mission to well, I don't know, it's sort of like Sheriff of Nottingham, almost like that kind of dynamic. Like, you work for the rich people, and if you have Hulu and you have season 5, you can watch season 5 of blah. Watch it, it's good. I can't talk about it with my mouth right now, I guess. But it has some unhappy, disturbing themes. I'm so glad I didn't put my little cards away, because it has a supernatural element to it also, which I love, but it also has this witch hunt element. And it is the terrible sheriff that has this vendetta for this woman. Well, when we meet her, when you start watching the show, she's a woman, but when she meets Roy Tillman, she's a child. And she's like on her own, and she's vulnerable, and she just gets passed around because she doesn't really belong to anybody, and so I guess they don't care. So this sheriff ends up marrying her when she's a child. And because she was brought home by the woman that was with him at the time, and she ran off because he was going to kill her because he was a domestic abuser. Sorry, I guess you're not supposed to say that, but he was going to abuse her until she just couldn't anymore. And she ran off. And so this character on the show, another co-star, Dot, ran off from him, and she had to change her name, and she changed her life, and she married another person. Meanwhile, so has Roy, and has had 2 children of his own with this new third wife person. But he's still obsessed with the one that ran off. And he's like, to the degree that we don't find out until the final episode of the series, but of the season. But it's like, oh my God, you really gotta, like, Earmuffs, kids. Knock that shit off and let it go. It is too old to his so deserving detriment at the end. But here's the thing. Getting ahead of myself. John Hamm plays Roy Tillman. John Hamm also played Don Draper in Mad Men, which was a series on AMC about ad agency executives in like the 60s, early 60s. And he was he is a good looking guy, but he was younger, so his hair was glossy and dark and sleek, and he was not having middle-age spread, I guess. He's not fat in Fargo, but he's definitely got like older man body, and maybe it was for the role. But he seems to have thickened up as he's gotten older, and he's not in like a superhero movie or anything, so he's not all buff to death. He's fine. So, but in Mad Men, he was like all hotted up and looking good, and he's a handsome guy. And so the thing is about Don Draper is Don Draper was a total falsehood. He totally like stole that name in the same way that Dot had to get away from Roy Tillman. And so I'm not saying it's the same guy, but I'm saying it's a thing that guys do that is in the same vein. So I loved Mad Men. I was all into it. Every twist and turn I was into. And then I think it was I stopped watching it at this point because of this. So I don't know how much longer it went on. I think another season and a half season and another one, because I think I stopped watching it in the middle. And what happened was Don Draper, I guess, discovered BDSM and sort of launched it on this woman, and she wasn't like down with it, didn't know about it. I mean, wasn't aware of it, didn't know what he was doing, didn't know that he was gonna do it, but handsome, good looking, lived in the same building. They were getting some scoot on the side. So then it turned into he came home from lunch or like didn't go to work and waited till her husband went to work because they were in the same building, and then he went to her place and they were getting it on, and then it turned into him leaving to go to work, and then him telling her, don't get out of the bed, don't move, don't do anything all day, don't leave the house, like. And she was kind of like, ooh, okay, like kind of into it at first, but then he just started getting like more and more demanding and like angry. And I know that BDSM is like all over the place and it's all popular. I had something similar happen to me. I met someone on a dating page, and they just neglected to leave that part out until they were already in my house. And I'm like, in retrospect, probably dude in the future mention that shit first, or find someone that is into that, because I'm not. Especially not after seeing this several years before, where Don Draper just started taking out, he was messed up. I mean, he stole somebody else's name, did not want to be himself, stole someone else's identity, actually, and didn't want to be his own self, because when you finally get to the bottom of it, he's just a regular guy, but did something bad that he felt bad about and didn't deal with it except for feeling bad and stuffing it down. And so he came around and took it out on the poor neighbor lady who just wanted to get it on. Man, what are you doing? Why are you like tying me down? So I'm not attributing this to John Hamm at all. He's an actor. I'm just saying that's not a new theme in fiction or reality, like overpowering women in like all of the ways they can be overpowered. And condescended to and minimized and diminutized and nagged. And like I said, women, we know. And I mean, if you more power to you if you're one of those women that are like, yeah, men, be all terrible, kick our asses. Like, there's a character in here that's the husband of the woman police officer, and he is just good for nothing. And he's like a real type guy too. He's very much like my dad, except I don't think he could sucker my mom out of as much money as this poor cop gave her husband. But she fixed his wagon. She didn't hurt him or anything, but it was good. Like, the conclusion with her husband, very nice and tidy. Thank you very much. So, but the thing about the Tillman character in Fargo that not Don Draper, John Hamm played, he's good at a scary, mean guy. But the thing about him was that not only was he like the sheriff of his little fiefdom, he used religion like falsely, quoting all kinds of things and making it okay to just keep having multiple wives and beating them up and impregnating them, and then following suit with the children or the next one's children, or hey, it's biblical, right? So, but he's right, he's righteous, and his thing is like, the woman has to submit always to the man no matter what, and support him in every way and booster him up. And so the useless husband was also saying this, and I don't know, like, it's kind of been on my mind a lot. Well, not a lot, lately is what I mean to say, because I think about it, and I think about, like, well, various people, women, have said things about this, about being the submissive wife, and I think people just go immediately to BDSM, and they don't necessarily mean that. If you have a thesaurus, you'll know that words will have more than one meaning, or not a thesaurus, a dictionary. But it's not automatically that. It just the way I've heard different people say it makes a difference in how it comes off. Especially like one is a very religious person, like they're all out and proud about it, in a way like a gay person gets in trouble for. Lots of people like her. So I just don't think that's fair. But it's like, I don't know, I feel like you're dealing yourself a bad hand when you consistently use like the word of the Lord to make yourself right when you're doing wrong ass things. And that's what he was doing. He raised his son to do that. Oh, and his son got a biblical punishment for his trouble. A supernatural element. Monk. Oh, Ula Monk. I don't know why he was like Swedish, but he was supposed to be Welsh and he sounded German or Swiss or something. I'm a really ignorant American, but that was my impression of the guy. I met a Welshman before, and I can tell you, he didn't sound like that. The one I met wasn't Hollywood, so he didn't have his accent fixed, and I could not understand him. It was like, have you ever seen like the signs for names in like Finland, and it's like 157 letters for one word, and 64% syllables and 88% consonants? That's what it sounded like when that guy talked. It was just like the emotion was there, and the emphasis and the accentation on the emphasis was there, and the message was always clear. He was leering, and eyes are up here, eyes are up, eyes up here, kind of dynamic with that guy. But I literally had to be all, what did he just say to me? What did he just, like, to the people? He had roommates that I knew. I'm just saying. The dude in the show didn't sound Welsh. Didn't even sound British, for that matter. But, he just had to be, like, from the 1600s, so never mind all of that, I guess. And he was cool, but he was tormented. He was like, you're mortal, and it almost seemed like, because of the life that he had, and because he felt so locked into it and trapped, which kind of makes me think of Don Draper and Tillman, because he was a big man because he got the sheriff job and he bossed everybody around. Like, he was, oh my God, he was so bad. Like, for his constituency, there was a guy that was beating up his wife. And the irony of this is so crazy, but he decided he was going to mediate for these people. And so the husband, obviously, young, drunk guy, beats on his wife. So you kind of get a flavor of, like, what kind of guy this is already. So here comes Tillman, and he's like, oh, sees the wife kind of beat up, knows that he did it, and he roughs up the boy. He's younger, he's not a boy, he's like late 20s or whatever, but he's a man, he's a married man, and here comes the sheriff guy admonishing him and counseling him and his wife like he's some kind of legal deacon or something, I don't know. It was messed up. And later he visits them in the home and finds out that the wife did her part of the assignment, and I guess it didn't go over well. And then in his own home, the guy was like, he was just sitting down to eat his dinner, and then the dude shows up, sheriff shows up, and just walks in, makes himself at home, and starts asking if they completed their assignment. So, like, she tried, or she did, or whatever, and Tillman did not care for her answer. Like, he believed her, but the dude's attitude was like, screw you, and who can blame him, really? Although it wasn't a normal dynamic between a cop and a domestic violence call. So it doesn't end well for the husband. It ends, though. It's kind of a violent show, but it's Fargo. What are you doing? You ate them all, honey. There's no more. There's some. You still have some down there. They're not. No, it's not in my hand. I'm sorry. You'll find it. Anyway. So, the whole, like, what are you doing? Get down from there. There's no more. You ate them all. Remember, I told you. Looking for treats. Okay, well, I guess, pin that. So, another thing that I was thinking about, and I don't know why I thought it was sort of had to do with that, but you know that show Ancient Aliens? So I watched that a lot around 2015, 2016, and then I just one day I was like, okay, that's enough. And what I have to say about it is I don't, like, disagree with much of it. Like, I think a lot of it is mostly right on, for what we can potentially know about things. But I know to have some skepticism, too. So, I was kind of like, it's weird, like, the stuff in my YouTube algorithm just kind of transitioned into a new stage or something. But I had been saying, and I'm sure the algorithm heard me because I said it so the algorithm would hear me, that I wanted to see this one Dolores Cannon channel that I had been watching. And it was called Mystery School, and then I watched it for 2 days, and then suddenly I couldn't find it anymore. So I guess the name changed, but at the same time, when I went looking for it after I entered the name in there, Dolores Cannon Mystery School didn't come up, but 60 billion other Dolores Cannon channels, or at least channels like spiritual, inspirational channels with her face and her name on there, but it wasn't nothing like what I had been listening to before, because it was like someone reading transcripts of her hypnosis sessions with various people, and they were visiting the mystery schools where Jesus went. And I just was taking some notes. So mystery schools preceded Jesus, which I learned because this video came up and it was talking all about it was talking about Enki, Enlil, and Anu, and it was about the first Holy Trinity. So they were talking some about Jesus and stuff, and how the Bible got changed a lot by Constantine, and like why he did it. And it was basically to unite like the pagans of the Roman Empire, because that was their practice prior to Christianity, adopting Christianity, and also other like tribal beliefs that just got absorbed by the Roman Empire. So they tried to make something accessible for everyone by putting a little of everyone's thing in it, which was probably pretty wise. But then it went on to talking about Jesus's birth and Jesus's education, and how he traveled and learned, some with Mary, like they visited Egypt when he was a young kid. I think they said he was about 8, and she took him there specifically so he could go to the mystery schools there. In the Dolores Cannon transcripts of the hypnosis, she spoke with one of his classmates at a different mystery school in, near Jerusalem, like somewhere in Israel near Jerusalem, but quite a ways off. So like I got to hear that about Jesus from various sources. Also, this video talked about how he went to India and he went to Iraq and studied in all of these places with the masters and the elders, and he had a very varied education, and his life all, well, I mean, it made him what he is. And this is what blew my mind, and why I was talking about ancient aliens, because at one point they talk about the birth of Jesus, when, you know, like the whole Christmas night story with the wise men. This story claimed that I'm laughing, but this could be as true as what's in the Bible, honestly. Nobody was there to say yes or no, right? So what they said was the 3 wise men were actually ETs in spacesuits or armor, and because the people of the time had no frame of reference and so no words to describe what they were seeing I guess people that were taller, and I'm inclined to think that the people in the Middle East at the time, I think it was in the Middle East, where's Bethlehem? Seriously, where is it? I'm blanking out, but maybe I have a feeling that people were not too tall, and so the ETs are often described as being tall if they're not really small, like grays. There's actually more tall ones that you'll hear about. So were they Palladians that they're trying to say arrived, or were they like from the Enki people, which I don't know where they were from, but they weren't from here originally. So if they had like golden or silvery suits that they were wearing, or some sort of protective gear or whatever, I don't know, who knows what they wore, because no one, I guess, could describe it in terms that we would understand today. But if it were shiny from the sun and they could do things with their technology that would have seemed just like magic, then okay, maybe, sure. But isn't that crazy? The three wise men were ETs. Oh, and get this though, this was crazy. So, like, you know about the virgin birth of Mary. So they were saying that the wise men actually came at an earlier time, or an emissary from the angelic realm, or, you know, a messenger from God, came and like artificially inseminated her. Which, okay, like I can deal with that, because in Ancient Aliens, one thing they do teach is that like ancient peoples, it's not that they teach it, they're showing you like historical items. It's not them just saying it, they're showing you the history and the landmarks and things that are saying it. So they were saying, I mean, it makes sense if that was the case, that the, you know, the more primitive races on Earth that didn't really know that much, like compared to us now, like it must have been a vast difference. And so they got help apparently from ETs. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that there's truth to that, as we do today. Like, who do you think has the power to shut off nuclear reactors or to make nuclear weapons inert? Not us. Not once they're like fired off, you know, once they've been let fly. We don't really have that. So it makes sense that they could. I mean, they got the flying ships, and, you know, they can like do like go into a different dimension and just be gone, like there and gone. Like we can't do that. Or I don't know many of us that can. I feel like that's advanced on us. So sure, if they were directing things in some way, which apparently they often are, or have a part in things, artificial insemination, that makes a lot of sense for the virgin birth. And somehow they got Joseph to sign on to it, which in his time would have been weird. Like, why are you marrying this girl that was pregnant? It's not yours. You should stone her to death. And he's like, no. They go keep her. God's stronger. But here's the other crazy thing. That's not that crazy, right? Well, maybe it is. But here's crazier. They said that her grandmother also, her mother was also a virgin birth, like Jesus. I guess there's some newly translated Sumerian stuff that points to this as well. And that there is evidence, so more mind-blowing. I just love stuff like that. So, do I have more to say? Oh, yeah. So, I thought this was funny. And I've been seeing on, like, the late night shows, now they're just making all kinds of fun of numerology and just making, like, connections that maybe they sound kind of out there or something to someone else that's not following, or maybe not following what you're thinking, you being me, when I'm making this analogy, I guess, or telling whatever I'm doing. I don't know. I'm not making fun of it, but here the numbers are 32 and 64. I pulled that out and I thought there's something with that. So What if you add 32 and 32? What do you get? You get 64. Well, what if you add 32 and 64? Oh, I guess you get 90, 96. I don't know what I was so excited about. I just added that up all wrong. I thought I got 74 out of it. 64 and 5 is 69. Not 74 either. Well, never mind. I don't know where I got 74 from. Well, I got all excited. I thought, oh, well, go ahead, make a joke about that. Make a joke about the numerology blowing up in my face. Okay, well then, never mind. But I did think that stuff about the ancient aliens being the wise men, like, totally nutty. But, you know, I love what they said about them not having the vocabulary to describe a spacesuit. And if they was, like, seeing them in any kind of light, metal is going to gleam. But they had metal. It's not like they didn't have metal in those days. I don't know, man. It's all kind of mysterious. But, okay. I think I'm done. Was this even worth anything? I don't know. Well, you got it anyway. Thank you and good night. Just got it all wrong.